Not a whole lot really to discuss, other than I have to say I'm almost too embarrassed to even say this, but pretty crazy day. Um, Ultimately, we're wrapping things up flat again for the day. So really nothing going on, nothing to talk about, nothing to write home about. What I'm too embarrassed to talk about is, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because I hope it's a good learning lesson for me, and I hope it's a good learning lesson for other folks out there if you haven't considered it before. Many of you know I switched platforms from Interactive Brokers over to TradingView recently. And in our Interactive Brokers, I was always used to changing my front month on futures contracts. Futures expire, the contracts expire, you have to change your front month. And in TradingView, I set up what I thought was a continuous chart, right? Just a continuous chart for the ES and S&P to trade from, but it wasn't. So this morning, what happened was I'm looking at levels and looking at what's happening with the market session, and then obviously, the session begins and nothing happens. Everything settled out because yesterday was the close of the June contract. Today everything settled. So, as the live session begins, after electronic trading ends, the live session begins, everything settles out on that new contract. And it took me a minute. I'm like, what just happened? And I'm looking like it says continuous contract. It says continuous contract. What's the deal? What's going on? So ultimately, after some frustration and searching around, I realized, check against my IB account and realized that I hadn't changed the front month. And even though I had what I thought was a continuous contract to trade from, I didn't. So ultimately, what I've got to do is to go back to my original process, which is change my front month every month coming up. So the lesson from that obviously is I guess twofold. One, when you change platforms, know what you're getting into and inspect what you expect, right? That's always the deal. Inspect what you expect. And I had an expectation that obviously was not what I thought it was. And that could have been really dangerous, and that could have been detrimental. Had I been in something and left it open overnight, on an incorrect contract, so really learn from my mistake on that. Geez, it could have been awful when you really look back at it. So learn from my mistake, and going forward, I'm just going to use regular, instead of trying to do continual contracts. I'm just going to change my front month, as contracts expire, and go back to the original process that I used with Interactive Brokers to ensure that I don't get lulled into thinking something is going to occur that doesn't actually occur. So anyway, that's really all I've got. The market's moving. We've just cracked below. We've just cracked below 3,100 here. Big move down on the S&P. So that might be might be the beginning of something. Who knows? We've been in a pretty tight in a channel here, kind of between this 3090 area and 3125 ish. So might stay in that range for a bit. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see if we really get a big sell-off on Friday today. Very well may. There's a lot happening out there, like we've been talking about. Could be the beginning of the market catching up with that disconnect that we're seeing, realization of maybe jobs not coming back the way we think they're going to be, economy not being as strong as we think it's going to be post-COVID. There's a lot of resurgence in COVID cases when a couple of states are talking about closing again. So there's a lot of stuff out there that could be driving this, a lot of catalysts potentially for moves. Of course, the big thing for us is to watch for opportunity as it sets up in our plan. So we need to wait for certain things to cross, for the biases to change, for that confirmation of bias to change, and then that'll allow us to get in. For now, just sit on your hands and don't get tempted to run things or chase things. Never try to chase the market. We get big moves like this. It's really tempting to want to chase the market. Some people want to chase the market from the aspect of, oh, I'm missing out. I want to get in now. I want to get in now and chase it. You know, if it's falling, chase it down. If it's rising, chase it up. Other folks see that big move and maybe missed that big move and then start chasing the market in a different way, in that, well, you know, it's had this big move, it's probably going to reverse. And then they start trying to, you know, play the reversal off of that big down candle. Again, stepping right in front of a train when you do that. So be careful. Just wait for things to set up and wait for the plan to come together so you can execute it as per your instructions. But for me, I had kind of a frustrating, flustering morning, almost too embarrassed to talk about, but I feel like it needs to be said. Inspect what you expect. And, you know, I mean, I can't even, you can probably tell by my tone and my demeanor, I'm just, that could have been catastrophic, you know, had I been in a trade or left something open there. So, yeah, anyway, good stuff, I think, to learn from, but bad stuff to have allowed to occur without catching that earlier. So anyway, all is safe, all is sound, and just have to have a new process moving forward here in TradeStation land. So anyway, that's it. Have a great day. We'll be back on Monday and catch up, see where things are going. We've got a you know, I guess there's really not much. I was going to look at crypto over here, see if there's anything really for us to talk about since the beginning of the day in either of these markets, but there's really not too much happening. Had a couple of moves down. Let's see. Let me pull up this Bitcoin chart for you here. Let's pull up this one over here. So, you know, kind of continuing with what we talked about earlier this morning, we had the bias continues to be in a short position, so looking for short opportunities. And, you know, so if you've got a buy bid or a buy mix account where you can trade on margin, you know, and trade both directions, you may be looking for continued short opportunities off of this 9,400 here on Bitcoin and off of, you know, 230 here on Ethereum. So we'll see if those continue to push lower. Of course, you know, be careful. A lot of things can happen over the weekend. You get a little bit bigger spikes, bigger moves in crypto over the weekend. It does trade 24 hours a day, 360 days a year. It does not stop. So as you get lower volume, you can increase the volatility if you have larger orders coming in and consuming those smaller orders that might be out there, which can cause kind of exaggerated moves. So, you know, I would encourage you, if you're trading that over the weekend, if you've got a little bit of profit, you might start to look to lock in your profit positions from there. If you're trading and just looking to accumulate, you know, right now is that time where you sit on your hands and you wait for things to come down to additional lower levels that would give you that opportunity to accumulate more at that point. So, you know, for right now, short positions, but if you're accumulating, you really can't do much. You'd be cash and either waiting to go back in, or you'd be sitting on cash waiting to put back in at a better rate. So that is it. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Of course, you know, use the weekend to, if you don't have a plan, create a plan. If you do have a plan, good opportunity to review it. For me, today was a good opportunity to review my plan and add a couple of line items in there for things that I need to make sure that I'm doing as we get to expiration dates for contracts. So anyway, that's it.